OMG, baby, tell him.
Hey there, welcome to Powered by Backers. It is Justin. I am here again. I am joined by Hassan Jaferi. Hassan, thank you very much for joining me this morning.
No problem.
How are you? How are you today? Doing all right?
Great. I just came back from a workout, so I've got the energy now.
You're pumped and ready to go. You're gonna bring the energy. Okay. So just a very quick sort of background. You work Toronto Innovation Acceleration Partners, TIAP, co-director, and you are the CEO of Bitnobi,
Right.
which is a startup that you run as well. You're here in Toronto. So why don't we jump into TIAP, Toronto Innovation Acceleration Partners. Tell us a little bit about what TIAP does and what brought you to that point, I guess.
So it's a really simple mission. There's all this amazing research that we pay tax dollars on, and a lot of this research just kind of sits on the shelves for years. So the mandate of TIAP is to basically commercialize intellectual property coming out of a couple of research institutions here in Toronto. And at the end of the day, it's about bringing IP from the lab to the market. It sounds easy, but in actuality, it's quite a difficult challenge. Only because it's esoteric technologies, it's abstract technologies. I've been doing this commercialization stuff since at least 2007. I kind of stumbled across it when I graduated from computer engineering from Ottawa U back in 2003. I basically applied to the Canadian Intellectual Property Officer as a patent examiner. Kind of cut my teeth there, learned a little bit about intellectual property, and then I made my way into commercialization at Queen's University, and then made my way to Toronto. So TIAP's business is typically startup companies,
Okay.
and the program that I run, which is called U-Test, is actually all about empowering faculty, staff, and students out of U of T, the research hospitals, to become entrepreneurs and basically launch startups that are coming out of labs from these research institutions.
Okay, so you're kind of taking the research and obviously then finding applicable sort of real world applications that they can then obviously launch a viable startup or business and commercialize it.
Easier said
than done, obviously. So what's sort of the strategy there? Like, how do you identify, the research that could potentially commercialize, or what's that strategy there? Like you said, easier said than done. What's the
litmus
there?
The litmus test is typically, is it solving an industry problem? A lot of these researchers that we work with, they spend years in their research lab focused on one specific topic or one specific sliver of knowledge. And it's amazing to see that these researchers have the ability of focusing in on those topics. Then it comes down to, okay, well, they've stumbled across, something new, a discovery. It's up to us to kind of do some due diligence around it and say, okay, is it unique and novel? Has it ever been done before? Because that has intellectual property considerations for it. And then the flip side of it is there anyone in the outside world, like, is the market going to say this is something that's worthwhile, it's solving a problem, and hey, we want to do some business on this. So those are typically the two litmus tests that we look for. Originally, what we typically used to do back in the day was license technologies to companies that had marketing, sales, and technology development. Now we're kind of shifting towards startup companies, and the reason why we did that was there's just a lot more venture capital and there's more resources. And it's a more exciting opportunity when you can spin off company from these research institutions. And I think at the end of the day, when you talk to researchers, they typically will say, I don't have time to commercialize this technology on my own. I've got a lab to run. I've got courses to teach. It's a situation where they look at us as partners. It's in a lot of ways, you can look at us as like a real estate agent. You have a home that needs to be sold. You may not want to do it on your own. You could do it on your own. You may not be successful, but you get a real estate agent in order to market and sell your home. So in a lot of ways, we're kind of that agent on behalf of the researcher and the research institution to figure out how do we actually find a way to build a business around these unique technologies.
That's cool. So it's sort of that, almost like the co-founder. You become sort of like that what's the word I'm thinking of, like kind of like
It's
that.
like a business partner.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely a business partner, but sort of like I'm thinking like that thing that catches the lightning, so the lightning rod that kind of like
Right.
captures it,
Right.
lightning in a bottle, right? So you're that a lightning rod for them. Cool. Okay, so that's interesting. So let's sort of transition. How did you get started then with your startup with Bitnobi? Tell us a
Right.
little bit about Bitnobi. Is that as a result of sort of a partnership with somebody in this sort of with TIAP, or how did Bitnobi come to be?
It's,
I guess
it's an excellent question. It's actually my way of taking the experience that I've built up doing commercialization of university technologies and actually putting it into action. So Bitnobi is actually coming out of York University.
Okay.
It's a technology built out of Dr. Marin Latoyu's lab. He's a former IBMer. We've got a gentleman by the name of Dr. Mark Stern, who's our cybersecurity expert. And so when I was interacting with York University about 5 years ago, I came across Marin, and Marin showed me this technology that he had. And he's like, we see a lot of data breaches on a daily basis. One of the reasons why we see so many data breaches. So think about Equifax, Desjardins, Facebook, everything. It's almost every day now we see a data breach. And his comment was, well, one of the reasons why these data breaches are happening is because copies of data are going from the vault to the end user. And what he was saying was, well, we've got a kind of a new way of doing that. Instead of kind of sending copies of data over to end users, let's flip the paradigm of data sharing on its head, and let's put the onus on trying to answer a question on the end user. So without getting into too much of the technology,
so not just encryption between the two.
It's more of a data sharing platform that allows a data provider to kind of set the rules of engagement against their data, and it exposes a preview of the data to the end user. And then it's up to the end user to say, okay, I've got a fundamental question that I'm trying to answer. They use this web-based interface in order to construct data queries and basically get an answer back. And the answer is typically a segment of data that will allow them to kind of move on to all their downstream activities. So I encountered Marin back in 2013. He had started up his lab after leaving IBM. And it's interesting, you don't see a lot of academics who have come from industry. Typically, you see it the other way around. You see academics kind of leave their jobs and then go to industry. So Marin is a good example of someone that saw some problem statements in his industry job and said, you know what, I want to tackle these problem statements within the confines of an academic institution. And I think what's interesting about that is there are a lot of non-dilutive funding opportunities that are available to researchers, and you just have to kind of take advantage of it. But most importantly, you got to have a piece of technology that's going to solve a problem. So when I first met Marin, he walked me through what they were working on, and I said, you know what, this is really interesting. Let me try and take a stab at this from the perspective of TIAP. So we became the commercialization agent for this technology, and I spent about a year just talking to a variety of industries: finance, healthcare, retail, and everyone was kind of nodding their head up and down. And going back to what we were talking about before, when industry says what you have is solving a problem, at that point in time, that's kind of when the lightning hits the lightning rod. It's like, okay, we're on to something here.
Right.
Let's take this to the next level. So we incorporate Toronto Innovation Acceleration Partners, York University, Marin, Mark, basically the founders of the company, started in 2016. I started basically taking on the role of CEO at that time, and I basically had to juggle both jobs. So doing the UTest program through TIAP, and then also doing Bitnobi, which has been, personally totally rewarding for me. And I think the reason why I did this was I wanted to take my kind of theoretical, or let's call it commercialization experience inside of an academic institution, and really just put that into play with a startup. And it's been great because as of last year, this startup has become revenue generating. And if you look at the journey from where it started, which was this just prototype sitting on a lab within a university, to the point where now we're interacting with multinational corporations in the pharmaceutical world. We're talking to banks. We're trying to help nonprofit organizations share data. It's been amazing to see this journey of, it's like a baby. The baby's born. Right. You got to feed it. It's now a toddler, and now it's starting to walk. So now we're trying to figure out what are the kind of the next series of steps that we need to take to grow this startup. And I'm a huge proponent of making sure that, Canadian intellectual property stays within Canadian companies, grows, provides jobs, helps the economy, and these companies become anchoring companies like the Shopifys of the world. Now, Shopify is, obviously the example that everyone uses, but it is important to note that it's a bigger company now from a valuation perspective than RBC, as an example. I think the tech industry over the next 5 to 10 years is going to grow at a very accelerated pace. And companies like Bitnobi, that's what I'm trying to kind of emulate is, can we build these companies with unique intellectual property, build, unbelievable Canadian talent that we have here, and kind of help, a company like this grow and scale.
Interesting. So I caught a bit of Elon Musk in you. So do you do like Monday, Tuesday at Bitnobi, Wednesday, Thursday at TAP, and then sort of Friday's the wild card? Or
it's funny.
What is your Friday? I guess a third company.
So everything is kind of every day is blended essentially. I mean,
right.
One day so I think what's great about working at TAP is TAP is an equity holder in Bitnobi. So they have a vested interest in seeing me make sure
succeed there. Right. Okay.
So I've been fortunate enough to kind of run the UTEST program and Bitnobi at the same time. I think it really just depends on the business development activities that happen on a certain day.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they're long days, yes. But I don't like the time just flies because I'm enjoying doing both of them.
Time flies when you're having fun, right? As they say.
Yeah.
So tell us. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say that's the key. It's I don't see them as jobs. I just see them as kind of passions that I like doing.
Right. So I'm actually that's actually an interesting point. I'll kind of draw on that. Give us sort of like a day in the life. What does that look like? You've got you're working on two sort of roles, two companies. How do you, like, if someone else is doing something similar? What sort of advice might you give to somebody to sort of structure your day? You mentioned you've already been up. I mean, I'll let everyone know it's 9 a.m. on a Friday morning. You mentioned you've already been up. You've been to the gym or exercised maybe at home. But so tell us a little bit about the structure of your day. How do you structure it, and what are some of the things that enable you to be productive in two companies when obviously, and I know you said there's a bit of overlap, so there's probably a little bit of a give and take there, but how do you sort of structure your day to be as productive as possible?
I think it starts off with going to sleep early. So I'm an old man now. Like, I go to sleep at 9, and I think what that really means at the end of the day is I get my rest. I wake up typically around 5 o'clock, 5:30. My day typically starts there, and the schedule is very simple. I try and get all of the complicated work that I need to do done in the morning. So I have a bit of a workout routine that I do in the morning, but from a work perspective, whether it's Bitnobi or UTEST, whatever is complicated and is challenging that I need to get done, that typically happens between, let's say, 7:30 until 10. That's kind of like my thinking time. And then in that latter part of the morning, I'm actually interacting with the Bitnobi team. We have like weekly team meetings. We have kind of weekly touch base points. Right. I think from the perspective of getting work done, tools are things like Slack, right. Zoom, which you're obviously
right now,
versed in. Having a proper desk setup, and I think my mobile phone is connected to my hip at all times. So if someone needs to message me for something urgent or we got to deal with something, I can immediately deal with it. But in terms of how I structure my day, the UTEST stuff kind of comes up on an ad hoc basis, because it's more of a mentorship / foundational program for entrepreneurs. So whenever they need to kind of book time with us, they reach out to me or my colleague Curtis. And then on the Bitnobi side, it's more about like, what business development activities do I need to accomplish on a daily basis? And so we've got our short-term objectives, medium-term, and long-term. And the long-term stuff is like, we're out trying to hunt whales in general. Right. And these are like the big accounts that if we can land, it really sets us apart for the next little while. So I spread my day across those 3 different activities. Short term is like, what's the contract that we're executing right now?
Right.
Are the deliverables on time? Are we executing the project management on a day-to-day basis? The medium term ones are the ones like, okay, when the next 4 to 6 months, who are those organizations or customers that we need to work with in order to kind of convert them for the next quarter or for whatever it might be. And then those whales that we go hunting for, those are kind of touch base points that we just try to make sure everything that we need to do to keep them apprised on the software development that we're doing and the product development, that kind of happens over the course of an entire day. So I think it's I wouldn't say it's a 9 to 5 per se. It's fluid. Like, I think what I find funny about
a 5 to 9, it sounded more like a 5 to 9, right?
Yeah,
you're up at 5, you in bed at 9, right? So
it's funny. I don't think anyone ever really shuts off their brain when they're working on a startup.
Right.
Some of the craziest ideas that I come up with, or some of the light bulb ideas, is me literally cleaning the bathroom or cooking food or hanging out with my kid. So it's the thing about entrepreneurship that I've noticed is those moments of spontaneity happen when you don't even expect it. And that's why I don't necessarily say, like, from a work perspective that I have a specific schedule. Like, the hamster's always kind of running in the back of my head.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. And yeah, definitely getting rest is important. I think getting up early is important. Spending time with family and friends is definitely can be that give you that spark, right? Those ideas come.
Especially right now with COVID. I think, I think what I've noticed with entrepreneurs is, they're stressed out about where the next paycheck's coming from, where the money is coming from. At the end of the day, there's nothing that we can really control about this virus other than you can get work done from home. As long as you have a proper setup. The internet has been an incredible thing. I think now might be the best time to start a company because you have all the resources on the internet that you need. Things like what you're doing in these kind of video sessions. There's so much information available that being quarantined really just means it's an opportunity to focus on something you want to learn about, some skill that you want to build.
Yeah, it's almost like, there's this focus, there's no distraction, right? You don't have to go out and meet with people, or you don't have sort of that distraction, or you're not at an office, working. So you have that time to yourselves. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. You joining me here. I don't want to keep you too long. I'm assuming you've got a very busy day.
No worries.
I typically end on sort of one question. This is about the maybe 60th episode of this, but I've gotten lots of different answers. So I'm excited to hear what your response is. But basically, if you could speak to, and you mentioned that you're getting old, I think we're probably around the same age. I'm 42, so you can say yes or no.
I'm turning 40 in November, which is
there you go. Well, welcome, happy birthday or early birthday, but welcome to the 40s. It's not as bad as people think. 40 is the new 20. But so if you could talk to a younger you, sort of starting out, what sort of one word or one piece of advice would you give to a younger you or somebody else who's coming up? What would that sort of one word or piece of advice would you give to them about entrepreneurship, about life, whatever it is?
It's okay to fail, really. We have this aversion to risk and failure. It's classic human nature. But if I had to do this all over again, I think I would have created my first startup when I was in high school. It's just amazing because there's so many connections that you build. But the truth of the matter is, even if you fail, you're going to learn something.
Right.
And that experience is actually more valuable, in my opinion, than an exit or $1 million in your pocket. That knowledge is something that you can actually relate to people around you. You can actually empower others around you. So I tell this to people that I work with at UTest, it's okay to get punched in the face because you're going to get back up and you're going to learn from it and you're going to move forward.
Right. No, that's great advice. I can't agree more. I say sort of mistakes made, lessons learned, moving on. Right. That's kind of and the faster you can sort of make those mistakes and learn from them, the better. So awesome. I appreciate it. We should definitely talk. I mean, with backers, we have a platform where we facilitate essentially equity crowdfunding. So private companies can raise capital by selling equity in their business to the crowd. So we should definitely talk about some of the companies or Bitnobi
For sure.
for capital. I do see you mentioned sort of non-dilutive, sort of like grants and things like that are available for researchers. Definitely great. And we advise a lot of the companies we work with, which I'm sure you do as well, to look for sources of funding, not just equity, obviously, or venture capital, but other sources as well. So definitely appreciate it. Enjoy your morning. Thank you for putting us in your 7 to 10 brain work.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend. Any plans for the weekend? Do you get away with the family, or what do you guys do?
Actually, we'll probably be around here, kind of biking around and soaking up whatever warm weather we still have.
Are you in Toronto? I didn't ask that.
In Richmond Hill. Richmond
Hill. Okay, cool. Well, enjoy. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of parks and space up there. So enjoy the weekend, and hopefully we'll connect soon.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks. And to everyone else, see you again on Monday.